For a kid's cartoon, Bluey has a lot of secrets that very few people notice. Did you catch the amazing little details hidden throughout the show? Rusty and Lucky. The episode Mr. Monkey Jocks ends with a scene that makes anyone emotional, because we see the stuffed animal donated by Bluey and Bingo ending up in the hands of a sick child in a hospital room. But there's something really curious in that scene, something most people miss because they're too busy tearing up. On the window, we can see a drawing of a red dog and a yellow dog, and they don't look like random dogs. They look exactly like Rusty and Lucky, Bluey's friends. Does this mean they're friends with the hospitalized pup and he drew them because he misses them? Or could it be that Rusty was once sick and spent some time in that hospital? The same theory works for Lucky. Either one of them could have been the artist behind that drawing. If that made your ears perk up, get ready to be even more surprised, because we're about to reveal 16 hidden secrets no one ever noticed in Bluey. Stay tuned, because another awesome Cinewave is already on. A model? In another scene from the same episode, there's a tiny detail that might reveal a lot about a character almost nobody remembers exists. While the healers are driving, they pass by a poster featuring a red dog on the beach. You can't identify the dog from that distance, but what if he's related to Rusty? It could be Rusty's dad, but why would he be on a poster? He's a soldier who serves in the Australian Army. It also can't be Rusty because the dog on the poster looks taller, so that leaves Rusty's older brother, Digger, the teenage one. We know very little about him, but if that is Digger on the poster, it might mean he does small part-time modeling gigs to earn money, something that could easily turn into a real career in a few years. See how a tiny detail can reveal a lot about a character? Cutting his nails. The episode Fancy Restaurant, like many others, starts in a simple way. Bandit and Chili are relaxing on the couch, one of the few peaceful moments they ever get, since they're usually working or taking care of the girls. But in Bluey's dad's case, wait, is Bandit cutting his nails? Most people don't even notice this and just accept the scene as normal, but the truth is that characters in Bluey aren't usually drawn with visible nails. So it's actually surprising to realize that they do have them. We just normally don't see them because of the show's art style. So had you ever thought about that, or did it never even cross your mind? The magnifying glass book. And in that same scene, Chili is reading a book, something we see her do in several episodes. If you're curious about what kind of book she likes, just look at the cover. It has a magnifying glass on it. Magnifying glasses are iconic detective tools, which means Chili is reading a mystery novel. Since that type of magnifying glass is often associated with classic detectives like Sherlock Holmes, it's very likely an old-fashioned mystery novel, maybe an actual Sherlock Holmes story, or maybe a classic Agatha Christie mystery. Who would have guessed Chili was so cultured, right? But honestly, it makes perfect sense. She's pretty smart. Aunt Mary. In Barbecue, almost the entire Healer family gathers for a family get-together. Not everyone is there, but it's the episode where we learn that Bluey has more relatives than we thought. Trixie compliments Chili's salad dressing, and Chili says she made it using Aunt Mary's recipe. Hold up, who is Aunt Mary? We never get an official answer, but she's most likely Chili's aunt, meaning she would be Chili's mom's sister. We only ever saw Chili's mom in old photos since she passed away, but her aunt? We have absolutely no clue where she might be. Is she still alive, or did she pass away too? Sans. Ever played Undertale? That indie game broke every possible boundary, to the point where it even gets referenced in a children's show like Bluey. Don't believe us? Just take a look at this scene from Mr. Monkey Jocks, where several stuffed toys appear. Most of them look like normal animals, but one of them looks almost exactly like Sans, the joking skeleton and the most iconic character from Undertale. So yes, it seems that the game is apparently canon in the Bluey universe, and that's hilarious when you think about it, because even though Undertale has fans of all ages, the game's story is pretty dark and deals with some heavy themes. Then again, the same is true for FNAF, and kids don't seem to mind at all. Comment below #secrets if you're enjoying these discoveries so far. Experience. In many kids' cartoons, time doesn't really matter because the characters never actually learn anything after each episode's events. Luckily, that's not the case with Bluey, where every single event really impacts everyone's growth. We can see this in the episode Dad Baby, where Bandit very easily straps on a baby carrier by himself. Then you think, he must have managed that because it's easy. But nope. In Baby Race, which takes place a few years earlier, we see that Bandit didn't always have an easy time with it. Back then, Bluey was still a tiny baby, so that carrier was necessary. But in the background of one scene, we see Bandit trying to put it on and struggling to do it. So Bandit's ability to equip the carrier so easily in Dad Baby was the result of years of practice, which he didn't forget even after Bluey and Bingo grew up. This is one of those parts of Bandit's backstory that people only understand when they pay very close attention. Yoga ball. Not even objects that are important in certain episodes get forgotten in the rest of the series. In Obstacle Course, the girls pretend they have to get past several items being used as obstacles. One of those items is a green yoga ball that belongs to Bandit.
But that ball wasn't invented just for this episode, because it's the central item in an earlier episode called Yoga Ball. It's amazing how the show's production team never forgets anything. Cat. Remember when we talked about Sans? He isn't the only toy that stood out in that episode. In the middle of the pile of plushies, we can also spot a plush kitten, which reminds us that cats do exist in the Bluey universe and are part of that world's culture. There are plush kittens, drawings where cats appear as main characters, and even scenes where the kids imitate how cats act. In a way, they seem to be adored in this world, which is pretty ironic when we remember that cats and dogs don't usually get along very well in real life. Sheep. Speaking of animals, there was also a reference related to them at the end of that episode. You know, that moment with the boy in the hospital that we mentioned earlier. If we pay attention, we'll notice that the wall in the room shows a farm, and we can also see a drawing of the boy playing with sheep. This reminds us that in real life, many dogs are used to herd sheep, meaning to guide them around. So maybe, in Bluey's world, dogs love farms and sheep because of that. Young puppies must love playing with them, which explains the drawing. Salute. The episode Army introduced Jack, a clumsy little dog who ends up becoming friends with Rusty by playing soldier with him. And right at the beginning, we can see that Jack knows very little about the army, because he salutes with his left arm instead of his right, even though the salute should always be done with the right arm. And yes, that was intentional on the show's part. After all, as the episode goes on, Jack becomes a better and better soldier. At the end, he salutes again, but this time with the right arm, which represents his growth as a soldier and also as Rusty's friend. Bones. Even though we're always looking at the healer's house, there are some details about the place that our eyes end up ignoring. For example, have you noticed that there are cutouts above most of the doors? And those cutouts look a lot like bones. The reason is no big mystery. Dogs simply love bones. The subscribe button is flashing just for you. Click it and hit the bell right now. Fossils. Bandit's office is a very interesting place, and we get to see it in a few episodes. The coolest part of the room is that he has several bones, ancient items, jewels, etc. And the reason behind that is a bit more complex than the previous detail. It's not just because dogs love bones, it's because Bandit's job is completely connected to all of that, since he's an archaeologist. Aging. Bandit is also often seen sitting on a yoga ball while he works, instead of using a regular chair. And the explanation isn't simply that he enjoys yoga. It's something a bit deeper. Bandit is getting older and older, which may eventually cause him to develop health issues. With that in mind, the yoga ball is probably being used to correct his posture so he doesn't end up with back pain. Rock. And you can be sure Bandit loves being an archaeologist. Every now and then, he goes off to take part in some archaeological expedition, finding several of those ancient items. But one of them didn't fit inside his office, so it was placed above the entrance of the healer house. We're talking about that chunk of stone with a paw print on it. Have you ever noticed it? Or did you simply ignore it in every episode? That wall piece must have been taken from a cave, with the paw print being the work of some cave dog that lived in prehistoric times. It's wild to think that Bandit managed to bring that home, right? Soccer. After all, it's not like he spends all his free time admiring those historical finds. In reality, when he's not taking care of his daughters or doing his job, Bandit does very simple things, like reading the newspaper. In Zoo, that's what he does the most. On the cover of that newspaper, there's a photo of a dog wearing a yellow jersey running around with a ball, clearly playing soccer. Funny, since the most popular sports in Australia are cricket, rugby, and Australian football, which works in a very different way, similar to American football. This might mean the news has something to do with the World Cup, which is famous all around the world. The player's jersey is yellow, the same color worn by Australia's national team in international events. The fun continues with just one click. There are 2 videos on the screen waiting for you. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.